MP Franklin Myers to the Gums families who have lost loved ones through traffic fatalities. KPSM investigates armed robbery at supermarket in Coal Bay. Elton Felici on the new strategic direction, which is built around the three pillars: internal optimization, healthcare, cost. Shamira Roseberg, Member of Parliament, is also a lawyer. Speaking about views on the floor of Parliament, from the island of Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for July 16th, 2026. Franklin Myers, to the Gums family, and all those families who have lost loved ones through traffic fatalities, I would like to apologize to the government's family for having you deal with this situation on top of your grief. I did not know Ryan personally, but I know that all this family, and I know them well, MP Myers speaking in the House of Parliament.
Firstly, I would like to apologize to the Gums family for having you deal with this situation on top of your grief. I did not know Ryan personally, but I know the Gums family, and I know them well. From Magic, to Lona, to Ursi, to Aline, to Miguel, and we could go on and on and on. Mavis, Swinder. I'll get in trouble calling names because it's so much of you. And the relationship goes way back. It goes way back to when Jojo, which is your father, used to cut my hair as a little boy. I'm getting kind of emotional. When I first ran in politics with the DP party, and Erno Senior went to your mother's house, she says, send Lally boy. Keziah says, send Lally boy. So that's the relationship that I have with the family, and that's how far back it goes. Now, my approach is going to be a little different, Madam Chair. Here I have a law that was prepared by former MP Claude Peterson. This is the law for DUI driving. St. Martin currently does not, in our legal system, you cannot do a breath analyzation to check your alcohol level. I am proposing to this Parliament here today, join me not only on this law, but wherever you have something that pertains to this case and where we have seen the shortfalls of this case, let's get together, make a law, call it the Ryan Gums law, and this way we know that it's too late for Ryan, but it can't happen again. And that's the approach I would like to take. I am too close with the Gums family to get into the political semantics that I see here, that I've seen here. And I am not going to disgrace the passing of a young man who lost his life tragically. I know his wife, Azalea, since she was a little girl. I have a picture here that I just showed my colleague since she was a little girl. It's an unfortunate situation. I could only imagine what it is like for her as a young mother of a little baby that the provider has now gone. To Magic, my good friend, his only son. But again, the tragedy that has impacted this family, and I said it, and I want to make something clear. It is a very difficult time, and it was a very difficult time and hard. And I'm telling you this because I appointed the Minister of Justice. And I've had discussions with her in regards to this case. And now I'm speaking directly to the family because I think And I know that I have that relationship with them that I can speak directly to them. The decision, once he was released from the prosecutor's office, and they decided that they were not going to pursue any conviction, they turned him over to immigration. The minister had one of two choices. Since his papers were not renewed since 2021, she had a choice to tell him, get your papers in order, and you have 8 weeks to do it, or deport him. She decided to deport him. And I understand the optics of it, but she decided to deport him because she figured that in deporting him, it will hit him where it hurts most, which is in his pocket. But in doing so, because he has businesses here, but in doing so, it also hit the family where it hurt most, is in their hearts. Because the optics of it look like he committed a crime and he got away scot-free. That is the reality of it. And that's how the optics look. The optics was very bad. And I could imagine, because I put myself in that situation as a father, myself, I would have been on that flight too. You know, so I understand. And I have, my profession in life is a mortician, so I understand grief, and I understand what families go through. I meet families. Whenever we meet a family in my profession, we meet them on the worst day of their life. We meet them on the worst day of their life. So I have a couple questions to you, Minister. Just what are the procedures for deportation? There was a former, what is the prosecutor's role in all of this? Because I understand while the minister has her responsibility, I'm missing, you see, Parliament can call in the prosecutor's office to question them on their role. And I have seen people, even members of Parliament, questioned and prosecuted for less. For less. You know, and when what the old saying, where there's a will, there is a way. You know, I've seen it, for example, just a couple months ago, there was an incident with MP Otley in the Carnival Village, where all indications were that he was parting a fight. But because he was an MP, he was arrested and questioned and then subsequently released. But the fanfare of that whole thing was the MP was arrested. Again, you know, I am not going to put myself in a position, because this is one of the most difficult positions that I have found myself in politically, whereas the party that I represent is the party in charge of justice, and a decision that has been made has affected a family who I care and love about. I care and love very much. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Members, thank you for helping out. But I would ask MP Myers to allow me to give you the floor for interruption, MP Roseberg. MP Roseberg, with the indulgence of MP Myers, you have the floor for an interruption.
Thank you, Chair Lady. No, I just wanted to make use of the interruption, seeing that MP Myers brought forward and he had a call to Parliament in assisting with said legislation, that I'm also on board to do that so that we can really show after this meeting that we are all on board. So I hope that my contribution, seeing that I have 2 interruptions left, now 1, that I can use that to make sure that the MP knows that I'm willing to work together. And I hope others as well.
Noted, MP Roseberg, and thank you. MP Myers, you may continue.
And the question I have, because you made a comment, Minister, in regards to the law, and I understood that you said the law was drafted and then the payment wasn't made, but the impression that was being given here today is that, like, as if it was last week. Can you give us the year in which that law and legislation was made and the year in which that bill wasn't paid? I asked what is the procedure for deportation. So if someone is caught on the island illegally, what is the procedure? they're
MP
caught,
Myers?
and you, sorry, Madam Chair, through you, if someone is caught on the island illegally, what is the procedure for deportation? And if someone has had papers and those papers are expired, and then they are caught, what is the procedure for deportation? And lastly, one of my suggestions would be to, and members of parliament has said, you know, we are willing to assist and help with the payment of the law. Maybe if we can, in our budget that's coming up, we can probably propose that we cut the travel budget of parliament and then take some of that money and propose for change in the legislation. But I would really like, for the family's sake, that all 15 members of parliament be on board with this legislation here that we call the Ryan Gums law, that we can ensure that anytime something remotely close to this happens again, all our ducks will be in a row as a government and as an island. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Shamira Roseberg, Member of Parliament, is also a lawyer, speaking about views on the floor of Parliament. And I decided to listen because, see my background, I also know how reality works and what the different loss states are. It is a fact, and we all know that here, and for those who don't know it, the loss on St. Martin. Several laws are outdated and often a year old.
A lot has been said here today, and I decided to listen because seeing my background, I also know how the reality works and what the different laws state. It is a fact, and we all know that here, and for the ones that don't know it, the laws on St. Martin, several laws are outdated. And often you hear, as a co-legislator, yes, do your job, make sure that you make the necessary changes. In a perfect world, and honestly, when I entered into politics, I thought it was that simple, indeed. But the reality shows that it is not. So now, I can remember for the introduction class of Parliament, that it was presented that it is a tango, you know? You make sure that you bring certain things forward, you work together with the council where needed, and you make sure that certain laws are being passed. It is something that is easily said, for example, knowing that the traffic ordinance is very much outdated, that members of parliament should change it. I don't fully agree with that. I do agree with the fact that we as members of parliament can provide suggestions. Such was done by myself and the ministry, together with the ministry, in regards to, for example, the breath analyzer testing. That's something that came in 2025. I realized, and I saw it in several cases, that, hey, we don't have that opportunity as in other countries within the kingdom. So I sat with the ministry and I looked into the option, okay, is that a possibility? And the ministry was also pro that approach. And we are currently still looking at the possibilities for such. But as was brought forward in the presentation, the current law does not provide that opportunity. And even if we would change said law that is currently in draft form available, then we would have it in the law, but then execution-wise, it is not being able to be executed because the funds are not there. So therefore, on one hand, we need to make sure that the current legislation is updated, such as also the criminal procedure code. Through you, Madam Chair, that's also something that needs updating and that has to be updated since 2019. There's a draft in Parliament, so we need to make sure that that part is being done. But currently, I want to take the approach, and also for the viewing public and in the public tribune, what can we ourselves do at this moment in time? Because that there are a lot of things that are currently not up to date or should have changing is a fact. But I don't want to leave this meeting here today with something I personally already knew and just leave with the other justice meeting without being able to say, hey, we achieved something. So therefore, I submitted myself to the minister in preparation of the budget, and before that, certain suggestions, seeing the rise of the several accidents, because we have seen a rise with deadly accidents. Let me specify that. We have seen also the reckless driving. Recently, I saw a video again where several scooter drivers have been reckless, and it has been filmed. We have seen also that several people in the community have shared such video, their input on that behavior. And I'm bringing that forward because we as a community, we have seen how powerful and effective we as a community can be. And therefore, I was brainstorming with others, okay, what can be done? And what doesn't cost money? What does our public on a daily basis is busy with? And that is, for example, social media, and we have seen it. So therefore, I said, let's do something creative by creating a campaign in regards to driving safe, or informing the public about what our current laws are. And that is not something that I myself only have to do. There are others, and I would like to take the opportunity today to ask others as well to contribute towards that movement, to make sure that we all doing it together, pending other matters that is being done, as we can see on the presentation. Because the ministry also brought forward in the presentation that awareness campaign is on its way. And that was also one of the suggestions which I brought forward in my letter. Can we make it more visible? Can we inform the public about the current laws, what is currently lacking, what is currently in place, and what is expected of someone who drives a car or a scooter, and what are the consequences if not? Also here today, Madam Chair, it was brought forward in regards to investigations and people leaving the island or people being released. I do believe, through you, Madam Chair, it's important that the ministry, maybe in collaboration with the Public Prosecutor Office, also in that line start an awareness campaign. I've seen that it's being done more, informing the public about what the Public Prosecutor Office does, what the law states. I try to contribute as well with Law 101 videos, but to inform the public, for example, not because someone is released, and I'm not saying it's good someone is released if there's a pending investigation, I'm not focusing on case-to-case basis, but that the public knows that when someone is released or leaving the island because of the fact of immigration-related matters, that that does not mean that the case stops there, because that often is being said or taught, but that is not always the case. So that the public prosecutor plays a more active role with the ministry in informing the public, because else we will have a narrative here that, for example, certain articles are being brought forward which don't apply in situations. And I would find it unfortunate seeing that we have a family, a grieving family, and there are other grieving families maybe online and viewing that the narrative is being created that, for example, a wrong article is being used or the wrong law is being followed. So the ministry, through you, Madam Chair, I would like to ask, and I'm also willing to assist if needed, that we have a more proactive approach. And I know the ministry is not going about the communications in case-to-case basis as the role of the prosecutor office, but hopefully the prosecutor office is also logged in, and they will make sure that the public information in basic terms is being brought forward so that it will not live its own life. A lot can be done in proper communication, and sometimes that is lacking. So that is something that I would like to advise the ministry to look into.
MP Darrell York. It was reported that the decision by the minister had decided to deport the individual. Something was said by a previous speaker in a different direction from this one. There's one thing. It was reported that the decision by the minister to deport the individual was mainly made to hit him in the pocket, said MP York.
Something was said by a previous speaker that made me go a different direction with this one thing. Madam Chair, it was made a reference that the decision by the minister to deport the individual was mainly made to hit him in the pocket. That's not something I said. That was what was said by one of the previous speakers. Madam Chair, to hit him in the pocket. Madam Chair, right now, in the detention center in Point Blanche, we have people sitting for white-collar crimes. White-collar crimes. Politicians, business people, who had to pay fines, hit them in the pocket. Who have to sit jail, can't do business, hit them in the pocket. And Madam Chair, after all of that, they still had to sit time. But this individual, because of hitting him in the pocket, gets deported. And Madam Chair, is of no secret to anyone, the individual, the deportee, is a friend of mine, Madam Chair. So even for me to say that the manner in which, or the argument used to come to the decision to deport him, makes it unfair to those going through the justice system and those who right now sitting in the justice system. And Madam Chair, oftentimes, the good MP Myers speaks on the injustices of decisions made by the prosecutor's office, and with that, I'm with him 1,000%. But to stand here today and say the minister made the decision because it was to hit him in the pocket only contributes to the same issues that he always speaks about. Because it's not right, Madam Chair. Have him stay here. I'm not talking about who's right and who's wrong. I'm not trying to litigate the process, but let the process run its course.
MP York, allow me to give MP Myers the opportunity for an interruption. MP Myers.
Thank you. For the sake of clarity, once, and I mentioned this in my deliberation, once the prosecutor's office turned him over to the immigration, and we know, like MP Linda Lewis said, who signs the document for deportation. The minister was left with one of two choices. One of two choices. And that choice was made based on what I feel, not what she felt. She didn't tell me this. What I feel was to hit him where it hurts most, which would be in his pockets. That's what I said.
Thank you, MP Myers. MP York, you may continue.
Madam Chair, if you can't convince him, confuse him. The MP said the decision was made to hit him in the pocket, and that is just wrong. Moving on, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, 2,500 questions. 2,500 questions, Madam Chair. There was an article released recently. The amount of questions posed by members of Parliament to the executive branch as it pertains to the 2026 budget. And of course, you know, there are those who like, there are those who dislike, but the general consensus was that there are too many questions. Madam Chair, for a presentation like what we received today is the reason why we have so many questions. Because, Madam Chair, it can't be that Budget 2024 amendment, Budget 2025, Budget 2026, Budget 2027, all these budgets are approved by the Council of Ministers, of which the minister is a member of, and none of these issues of the what you can do slide were mentioned previously by the minister. Not one. It can't be, Madam Chair, and this is why we have a lot of questions, Madam Chair, it can't be that the same party of the minister is now the chair of the Justice Committee and none of these things has ever been discussed. None, not one. And when we had a justice chair that was actually calling meetings, a person was removed saying, you're calling too many meetings. And now we're sitting here, standing here saying, oh, let's be more proactive. How is it, Madam Chair, how is it that all these things
MP York, I'll allow MP Roseburg an interruption. MP Roseburg.
Thank you, Chair Lady. I just want to make it clear because I don't want the narrative out there that that has been said. I'm currently not the Chair of Justice, but I am in active communication with the Justice Minister in regards to how certain things can be resolved. So I don't want that to be in the air that that is a reason and that that will now be hanging there. But I am trying together with the minister to see where possibilities are there. And lastly, just to make a remark, we also have to be reasonable, and seeing what I brought forward in my moment of talking, and MP Myers mentioned it as well. On one hand, the person could have been deported, and on the other hand, the person could have been released and be free. And that is something what our current reality and our law is working with. And we need to ask ourselves if that would have been a better option. So the law is what the law is, and we should look in where we can make the adjustments and act proactively in such. Thank you.
Thank you, MP Roseberg. MP York, you may continue.
Madam Chair, what I mentioned just now has nothing to do recently with the recent death or anything like that. I'm not standing up here blaming the minister for any death, Madam Chair. But what is something that I constantly keep bringing up is, instead of being proactive, we are always stagnant being reactive. Because, Madam Chair, at the end of the day, for the minister to come in and give the type of presentation she gave, basically, I didn't see where she took any accountability for the things that have not been discussed. Because the first thing the minister turns and says is, justice doesn't write its own budget. So to that, Madam Chair, I have one question. Who writes the budget for justice, Madam Chair? Who? Is it the Minister of Finance? Is it the Prime Minister? Who writes the justice's budget? Madam Chair, in the what you can do or what can be done, there were several things that was mentioned that Parliament has mentioned over the last 2 years. As a matter of fact, Madam Chair, the things about the infrastructure, et cetera, those meetings has been requested by this House, by this faction, as a matter of fact, Madam Chair. But then we have to wait a year for the meeting to be called. And then we stand here and say, we need to do things. Madam Chair, every time we do try to do things, it's coalition above country.
The police force of St. Martin, KPSM, is investigating an armed robbery that occurred on Wednesday, July 15th at approximately 8:45 p.m. at a supermarket located on Union Road in Coal Bay. According to preliminary information, 2 armed suspects entered the supermarket and threatened the cashier before stealing an undisclosed amount of cash. After committing the robbery, both suspects fled the scene on a scooter that had been parked nearby. They were last seen heading in the direction of the border towards the French side of the island. Detectives and members of the forensic department responded to the scene shortly after the incident. An investigation is currently underway, and evidence was collected to assist. KPSM is appealing to the public for assistance. Anyone who was in the vicinity of Union Road around the time of the robbery, or who may have witnessed suspicious activity or has information that could assist the investigation, is urged to come forward. Your cooperation is vital in helping law enforcement identify those responsible and bring them to justice.
Are you Asset V insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? Asset V is cardless. Request your My Asset V account today and enter the virtual office of Asset V. Go to assetv.sx and sign up now.
Asset V, yeah. Your social and health insurances.
Now You Know with Valerie Van Putten in an interview with Deputy Director of SCV Elton Felici on the new strategic direction, which is built around the three pillars: internal optimization, healthcare, cost management, and revenue enhancement.
It's
It
a challenge.
becomes expensive.
Yes, it becomes expensive. It's a challenge, and it's also communicating with the public as to what is the situation. As you know, we have a financial statement. It's every year on our website, done by our communication team together with our financial team, and in it we always give the financial situation of, especially the healthcare fund. So it's something we were discussing with the government, I think, since 2012. I think in the year 2014, we got instruction from the kingdom as to, hey, from CFT then, you have to do something with the healthcare funds. And then it transpired through the course of the years, and we are where we are right now. But I must say there is different items, measures we took along the years to be able to help us be financially sustainable with the healthcare funds. They are all being implemented right now. They are in the strategy. And what we make sure is that the quality of healthcare is not compromised. As I mentioned, we really want to cut waste in the process. And once everything is done from that angle, the next angle is, as you can see, revenue enhancement. Is basically we want everybody that needs to contribute. Because social and health insurance is the safety net of the community, right? So if something happens to you, these funds will take care of you. But the fund can only take care of the whole population if everybody contributes. So that's why we put, the revenue. And once we do everything in our power, that, and we're transparent enough and show the public that we try, then the only next step could be we need to increase premiums, for instance, right? We need to increase premiums. If everything else you did, for instance, it's still not balancing out.
Yeah.
But that transparency needs to be there. So you need to make sure that you cut waste, you think on solutions, other solutions that still give you quality healthcare. To give an example, one of those is to switch, and a lot of people don't like to hear it, switch to generic medication.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, that is something that is not going across, not going over too well with many clients.
Yes.
Many patients.
But from a medical perspective, there's no compromise to the quality of care. And in our situation, what we have also, if the client doesn't go with a generic, if there's a medical indication, we will give the client also the brand.
Oh, you will? Okay.
Yes. But there needs to be a medical indication, though.
If they insist on it, or has it
No, it cannot be you insist on it.
Okay, so Mr. Felici, talk to us about the difference between the brand name and the generic. Every time it gets explained, it's like, okay, talk to us about because you explain it and people are still saying, I don't care. I still want my brand name, whatever it may be, and will they be able to pay extra for it, or would SFB take up that tab from the brand name, from the generic to the brand name? Because the generic, people say, I don't care what I want, what I'm accustomed of using, especially the older folks. There's a 81-year-old young man, and if you give him anything else except what he's accustomed to using, he'll fuss with you. He'll tell you, no, I don't want it. I want what I'm accustomed of using.
Yes.
So what's the difference between generic and brand name? The efficacy,
Yes, exactly. I think the efficacy is very high in regards to generic, but of course you would have some individuals that medically cannot get the generic. I think, let me give an example. I think we were discussing about one medication that if you use generic, we can save quite a bit of money. But at the same time, that generic cannot, somebody with high hypertension cannot get that generic, right?
Okay.
Because it has a side effect with in regards to somebody with hypertension. So in that case, those persons will get the
Brand name.
Yeah, that's an example. So generics is not 100% the same, but it's close enough that in most cases you won't see the difference. It's the same efficacy. It's the same results than the brand, right? Maybe on a chemical basis a little bit different, but in general there's not a big difference. So it's a matter of continuous teaching and giving enough information for people to feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
And also one of the things what we always say, if there's a medical indication that the person needs the brand, we will continue giving, but that cannot be a preference. And I know people would prefer, but sometimes you need to just try, and if it works, you just continue, and and if it doesn't work, and you go to your doctor and you say, okay, these are the symptoms I'm getting with the brand, with the generic, sorry.
The side effects.
Yeah, these are the side effects, and based on that, the GP will request, hey, this person has this medical condition with a generic. We will eventually give the individual the brand.
Does the general practitioner have to contact SZV
Yes.
before any changes are made?
Yes.
Okay.
Now for the weather forecast. Tonight, fair to partly cloudy. Friday morning through evening, fair to partly cloudy and slightly hazy. Isolated showers are likely. Surface winds, tonight through Friday evening. Easterly with a light to moderate breeze at 6 to 15 mph. Higher gusts are possible. State of the sea, smooth to slight. Waves swells, 1 to 4 feet. Outlook through Saturday evening, partly cloudy and slightly hazy with isolated showers. And now your 3-day forecast.
SZV, your social and health insurance is SZV, your social and health insurance is.
Are you SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SZV, yeah, your social and health insurance is.
Cadastre St. Martin is helping to move drone technology from occasional use to a more coordinated tool for mapping, planning, and disaster preparedness. Cadastre, together with the Bureau of Telecommunications and Post St. Martin, recently convened a cross-agency technical working session on the use of drones for mapping, data collection, professional training, and public sector planning. The discussion focused on how government and public entities can make better use of drone-generated information, while ensuring that each agency's role remains clear. For Cadastre, the work is directly connected to its core responsibilities: accurate mapping, reliable land and infrastructure information, and the careful management of spatial data used for planning and decision-making. Cadastre operates a fleet of large LiDAR-capable drones flown by European-certified pilots, supported by an established legal framework for government data collection and mapping. Recent applications include 3D mapping of the St. Martin Hospital complex, volume calculations related to waste management and soon to be executed, airport mapping, and other public sector assignments. The Bureau of Telecommunications and Post St. Martin contributed from the perspective of telecommunications, radio communications, pilot licensing, and coordination related to drone registration and certification. This combination of mapping expertise and regulatory knowledge was central to the discussion. Participants explored how drone mapping can support national priorities such as land use planning, infrastructure development, disaster preparedness, and public works. One practical area under consideration is the use of aerial before and after imagery following storms or other major events. Such documentation can assist with damage assessments, recovery planning, and more accurate reporting after an emergency. The session also considered the development of a professional drone training framework for agencies that operate drones or rely on drone-generated information. The proposed training would cover legal requirements, aviation standards, communications procedures, privacy considerations, operational safety, and proper use of collected data. This is our SXM Daily Newscast. Thank you for joining us.